our March Cabinet meeting. I have a couple of practical issues to highlight. First, we have no fire drill planned tonight, so if there is a people with mobility issues should gather in the foyer on the right-hand side as you leave the Mancroft room, that's this room, near to the balustrade where assistance will be provided. Toilets are at the far end of the corridors, either side of the council chamber, ladies to the right as you leave and gents to the left. And this meeting is being live streamed on the council's YouTube channel. So, first of all, apologies. We've received apologies from Councillor Jones and Councillor Kendrick. I believe I've also received apologies from Councillor Giles, who is unwell. Councillor Kendrick is in an LGA finance conference. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, please? No, thank you. Public questions and petitions. There have been none received. Item 4, questions for Cabinet members. There have been no questions received. Minutes. These have been circulated. Can we please confirm that these are an accurate record of the meeting on the 5th of February 2025? Favour? Yep, agreed. So item 6 is the appointment of a director to 3SCORE Open Space Management Limited. This is an item for report. So I can confirm that Emily Yule will be appointed as a director to 3SCORE Open Space Management Limited. Welcome and congratulations, Emily. Item 7 is the Indicative Local Development Scheme 2025. I will move the report. The Local Development Scheme, or LDS, is a programme for the production of local plan documents. We last updated the LDS for Norwich in 2023 to account for the Greater Norwich Local Plan timescales nearing adoption. A new LDS is being prepared at the request of the government. On the 12th of December, a new NPPF, National Planning Policy Framework, was published, which amongst other things changed the standard methodology for calculating housing need, which in most cases, including in Greater Norwich, has increased the figures. Following this, on the 13th of December, the Deputy Prime Minister announced that all local planning authorities need to submit a new LDS to government by the 6th of March 2025 to ensure full coverage of up-to-date local plans that plan for the increased level of housing need. The main changes are: there have been a number of minor changes to the LDS, such as condensing some of the text and removing supplementary planning documents and guidance notes due to the short time frame in which we had to prepare this document. However, the main change is programming the review of the Greater Norwich Local Plan. Officers were already considering what the appropriate scope and time frame for the GNLP review might be. Existing policy and regulations make clear that local plans should be reviewed every 5 years, and the NPPF specifies that if local housing needs figures have changed significantly, then early review is likely. For Greater Norwich, the new housing need methodology means the housing need figure increases by 34% above the figure calculated using the previous method, and 28% above the housing planned for in the adopted GNLP. This means that the GNLP does not currently plan for enough homes. In addition, the new NPPF has removed the saved 5-year land supply from the adopted GNLP, which could leave the councils at risk of speculative development. The LDS proposes that the review of the GNLP will start later this year to allow some time for scoping work, and would ensure the new plan would be adopted by March 2029, which is in the 5 years of the adoption of the GNLP. There may be some reticence to undertaking the review so early after adopting the GNLP. However, from our understanding of the planning reforms and changes to housing numbers, officers do not consider there is an alternative option available to us. Should the new LDS not be agreed with a commitment to review the GNLP, the government has reiterated that it is prepared to intervene in plan making, which could reduce the control and influence of the council and local residents on the plan review. Officers have also considered that devolution and reorganisation could impact upon this process, and have set out in the report that close collaboration with Greater Norwich authorities is needed to ensure that any work undertaken will continue to be relevant for the plan review, regardless of any administrative changes that occur. There are obvious resource implications, both financial to pay for production of evidence documents and also staff resources from across the three councils. The full extent of these implications are not currently known. This will need to be planned out as part of the budget planning. On the 27th of February, the government confirmed that it would be proceeding with the previous government's proposal for local plan preparation timeframes to be limited to 30 months. This announcement was made after the Cabinet papers were published, therefore this is not referenced in the interim LDS. The new plan making timescales will include 3 gateway assessments which are intended to raise plan issues at an early stage so that the examination process is smoother and more streamlined. The process will still include 2 separate public consultation periods. The timetable shown in the interim LDS already makes reference to when the gateway assessments might take place in the process. However, the timetable for production will need to be condensed to fit within the 30-month timeframe as opposed to the 36 months currently identified in the indicative LDS. Officers anticipated that there would need to be additional changes to the LDS when it was produced and titled the document as indicative for this reason. Officers recommend that the interim LDS is submitted to the government in its current form, include in the covering email the intention to review the local plan production timetable in line with the changes announced on the 27th of February. So I hope that's clear. It's complex, but I hope it's clear. Do I have a seconder, please? Okay. Yeah, Carly. I'll now move to questions from political group leaders. Councillor Galvin, beg your pardon, does any other cabinet member wish to speak? No. Okay, Councillor Galvin, would you please ask your question?
Thank you. With regard to delaying review of the Norwich Development Management Policies Plan on the grounds that the government intends to publish the national development management policies covering issues that affect the whole country, I understand the government timetable looks set to be published in the summer. It would be good to have a report on the likely issues to be covered in the national policies and what MHCLG is advising local planning authorities with regard to the review of the DM plans. Can you detail exactly how we're preparing as a council for this? For example, asking councillors and communities for their ideas, because our DM plans are horribly out of date, and preparing capacity in the planning team to make sure the long-awaited review is effective.
Thank you. I will respond. At this stage, there is limited detail on the likely content of the National Development Management Policies, though a previous consultation suggests that they may be broad-ranging. More detailed information is expected to be available in spring 2025 as part of a government consultation. Once this information is available, the planning policy team will need to determine the scope of the development management policies review, taking account of the content of the national development management policies, the results of the Reg 10A review, and any new and emergency policy areas. Project planning will then follow, looking at resources and capacity, as well as planning engagement with members and the public.
Thank you. Could I just ask a supplementary, do we know what work has been done at this stage to identify kind of gaps and collate ideas, or would it be possible to do some of that advanced work? Because we know it's coming, so.
Yes, we're actually in a good place for that, because the Reg 10A review that Councillor Stonard just referred to, that was effectively having a look at the development management policies that we currently have to see which ones are fit for purpose, which ones need changing. Now, this came to Cabinet, I think, in January, so we're actually in a good place. That work has already been done. So the question you asked will be ready to go once we are told by the government the breadth of the coverage of their policies. We know the comprehensiveness and the up-to-dateness of our policies.
Thanks, Mike. I didn't get your name wrong. I thought it was Mark was going to come up. That's why I got confused, but it's all right. Thank you. Now move to the vote. All those in favour? Very much, that's unanimous. I'm afraid I'm going to be doing a lot of talking. I'm afraid I may lose my, I hope I lose my voice. Item 8, Item 8, purpose-built student accommodation supplementary planning document. I will move the report. The existing PBSA, that's purpose-built student accommodation, evidence and best practice advice note was adopted in 2019. Since then, a significant amount of PBSA has been delivered, much of which has been in the city centre. The GNLP has also been adopted, which is a policy about PBSA. Policy 5 sets out that PBSA will be supported where there is a need. The council commissioned consultants to do a study which in particular looks at whether there is still a need for PBSA in Norwich. One of the key findings of this study is that the current stock and expected pipeline supply is expected to meet demand and that there is a risk of oversaturation in the market. As we now have up-to-date evidence on need, it is important to consult on an SPD, that's a supplementary planning document, so it can be used to inform future decision-making on PBSA schemes. The draft SPD sets out that the evidence suggests that there is no further need for PBSA, but acknowledges that the situation could change over time. Therefore, it allows for a needs assessment to be submitted with planning applications, and the SPD sets out what must be included as part of this. The SPD also sets out what factors the council will take into account when determining applications for PBSA and includes a section on how affordable housing contributions will be calculated. Do I have a seconder, please? Emma, thank you. Councillor Hampton. Does any cabinet member wish to speak? In that case, I'll move to questions from political group leaders that have been sent in advance. Councillor Galvin, would you please ask your question?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the report. Thank you for the guidance. I know it's been through committees, etc., and it's now going out for consultation. So, and it acknowledges there's an oversupply of purpose-built student accommodation, and on top of that, there's under-occupancy of halls of residence and campus. And we do also have ongoing issues with residential stock, like smaller terraced houses being converted to student HMOs with sometimes hefty knock-on impacts for communities. How can Norwich, which is a proud university city, get the balance right on this, and what work has been done to assess other similar cities and learn from best practice?
Thank you. The supplementary planning document to be consulted on has been informed by the 2024 PBSA study done by our consultants. This is a consultancy which has extensive knowledge and experience of the PBSA market, and as part of their research looked at other university cities and national data. Each university city is different, and there is no recommended national figure for achieving the correct balance between PBSA and HMOs, that's houses of multiple occupation. Research carried out in Sheffield suggests investment in the PBSA sector in a city will trail off once PBSA bed spaces reach 40% of total student numbers. The proportion of bed spaces to student numbers in Norwich is close to this 40% threshold and could exceed it with pipeline projects. Whilst the evidence suggests that there is no further need for PBSA, as the needs of the existing student population and projected future population can be met by the existing and pipeline supply, ongoing data collection, regular monitoring and review of data in association with higher education institutions in Norwich will be kept up to date. This will be informed by ongoing engagement with the universities and their students. Finally, whilst it is important to ensure that the accommodation needs of the current and future student population can be met, both PBSA and private rented set by the can be met through both PBSA and the private rented sector, there remains a need in Norwich for development of market and affordable housing. The SPD sets out that student housing should not be prioritised to the detriment of other housing or types of development. Okay. Shall we move to the vote in that case? All those in favour? Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. Item 9 is the Northcombe Waveney Planning in Health Protocol update. I will move the report. The report aims to endorse the revised Northcombe Waveney Planning in Health Protocol. The protocol content is that the protocol outlines how health organisations are consulted about planning applications and on developing local plans. It ensures health considerations are accounted for in plan making and planning applications, including the design of development promoting healthy and active lifestyles and the provision of new healthcare facilities to serve growth. The protocol has been revised to reflect new structures and policies within health and spatial planning. The main changes to the protocol are, first of all, greater consideration of health promotion through planning, updates to reflect new NHS structures and national planning policy changes, and improved accessibility and clarity of partner roles and responsibilities. So first of all, do I have a seconder, please? Emma, Councillor Hampton, thank you. Do I have any Cabinet members who wish to speak? No, in which case I will move to questions from political group leaders that have been sent in advance. So Councillor Galvin, would you please ask your question?
Thank you. So new healthcare facilities are specifically required through the GNLP at the strategic regeneration areas at East Norwich and the Northern City Centre, and as paragraph 13 states, any requests for funding for those healthcare facilities through section 106 in particular from housing developments outside the strategic regeneration areas will be subject to the tests set out in paragraph 263 of the recently adopted local plan. Requests for contributions towards the general funding of healthcare provision will not meet these tests. However, with, for example, the huge cuts currently being proposed to, for example, Norwich's well-used walk-in centre and local GP practices under the COSH, how can we be assured that there will be funding available from the NHS to build those necessary facilities?
Thank you. For a number of years, Norfolk planning authorities have worked closely with healthcare providers, including through updates of the Health Code protocol, to ensure that new development promotes healthy and active lifestyles and that the healthcare providers are aware of when and where growth will take place. This enables the NHS and other providers to plan and deliver healthcare facilities to serve growth planned through the Greater Norwich Local Plan. For some larger sites in Greater Norwich, such as East Norwich, land will be set aside to allow the NHS to provide new facilities. The facilities required to support growth in the area are set out in Appendix 1 of the GNLP. And I would say we will continue to work very closely with the ICB to ensure that in partnership we can influence them to make the necessary investments. We'll now move to a vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you. That has been carried. Item 10 is the Norfolk Recreational Impact Avoidance and Mitigation Strategy update. I will move the report. As you know, there's a legal requirement for local plans to ensure no adverse effects on protected sites as a result of habitat regulations. The updated mitigation strategy has been developed through the Norfolk Strategic Planning Member Forum, of which I'm a member, to address the impacts of residential growth on internationally protected habitat sites, protected habitats in the Broads, the Brecks, on the coast and in other river valleys and fens county-wide. Policy 3 of the Greater Norwich Local Plan requires residential developments to mitigate visitor pressure on protected sites through contribution to RAMS. And that's recreation avoidance mitigation strategy. The review of the mitigation package is as follows. The 2021 mitigation package was reviewed, leading to a detailed 2024 action plan and an increased tariff from £221.17 to £293.53 per dwelling. The action plan includes projects costing £22 million over 22 years. And the governance is that Norwich City Council will host the new post of delivery manager and manage the central pool of funds, and a board will be established to oversee the delivery of mitigation projects with members from all local planning authorities, and Councillor Hampton will be a member of the board for Norwich City Council, which would seem appropriate given her portfolio. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hampton again. Does any cabinet member wish to speak? No. Okay. I'll move to questions from political group leaders that have been sent in advance. So, Councillor Galvin, would you care to ask your question?
Thank you. So,
Okay, so along with the districts in the county and the Broads Authority, Norfolk County Council is part of the Norfolk Strategic Planning Forum. For a number of years, the forum has successfully proposed joint approaches to be taken through local plans across the county to cover strategic planning issues such as housing, transport, and in this case, environmental protection. This has included collating joint evidence such as the updated evidence strategy and action plan on protecting Norfolk's many precious fragile areas from increased visitor pressure resulting from the planned increase in house building, which is covered by this report. The content of the revised strategy and action plan, which identifies improvement measures for the internationally protected habitats in the Broads, the Brecks, on the coast and in other river valleys and fens county-wide, the appointment of a board to oversee spending and the appointment of a dedicated officer to deal with the funding will enable the most beneficial spending of funds. After discussions, it was concluded that the County Council should not oversee this work as it relates to the habitats regulations, which must be addressed to enable housing development, district council planning function to go ahead. Norwich City Council has agreed to be the hosting authority. All right, one more, yeah, go on. I might ask an officer to answer.
So I did ask officers about this, how much money is sat in the pot? So I was promised an answer, I haven't had one yet, but I'd like to know that. But how can we be certain the scheme will operate effectively to look after the species in areas which the money is being collected for when we hold the central pool, but we're not accountable for the operation of the scheme? In other words, who will have oversight of how it actually works out there? Okay. And how will that work?
Mike will give you the definitive answer on that.
The definitive answer is the appointment of the board and of the officer to specifically deal with this will provide the solutions. So we have in this revised action plan, we have the £22 million worth of projects. So it will be this officer's job to ensure those projects are implemented in the most appropriate locations. One point to note, though, is that none of this money will be spent in Norwich because none of the protected habitats are in Norwich.
So we can be the honest broker. Yeah, thank you. We'll now move to a vote. All those in favour? That's passed, carried unanimously. So we'll move on now to item 11, which is the pay policy statement for 2025 to 26. I will move the report. It is a legal requirement to have and publish a pay policy statement approved at full council annually. Pay policy should cover the remuneration of chief officers, remuneration of lowest paid employees, definition of lowest paid employees, and the relationship between chief officer remuneration and the rest of the workforce. Norwich City Council's pay policy statement covers all employees and not just senior pay arrangements. In summary, this is what's changed for 2025-26. Pay rates following national agreed pay increases for 2024-25 have been incorporated. Pay rates will be updated to reflect the 2025-26 pay agreement once this is agreed. Pay claims for the 2025 to 26 period have been submitted by the trade unions to the national employers, and the national employers are currently consulting with councils regarding the claims. The pay policy statement includes the pay ratios in respect of the lowest paid to the highest paid and the median to highest paid. There has been a slight improvement in the pay ratio for the highest paid to lowest paid from 1 to 6.51 to 1 to 6.06, and a slight increase in the pay ratio for the highest paid to median earner from 1 to 4.28 to 1 to 4.54. The change in the pay ratio of the highest earner to median earner has changed due to the median point of the pay scales changing. Each grade includes a number of pay points, and employees progress through the pay points annually, reflecting the increasing experience in their role. Median pay point at the 31st of March 2024 was the top point of grade 5 at the date of the data cut in 2025. It was the bottom of point of grade 5. This is attributable to change in the headcount and turnover. As a general principle, new appointments are made at the bottom of the grade. The remuneration arrangements for the Deputy Chief Executive role have been added at paragraph 2.6. This was in pay policy statements from 2016 to 2021 and has been reinstated. So first of all, do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Kidman. Thank you. Does any cabinet member wish to speak on this item? No. Okay, we'll move to questions from political group leaders that have been sent in advance. So Councillor Galvin, would you like to answer your question, please?
Thank you very much. Yeah, local authorities can support their carbon reduction targets by encouraging more employees to use electric vehicles through flexible salary sacrifice schemes like the Bike to Work scheme and childcare vouchers that we already do. In addition to those, can we consider an EV scheme for employees?
Thank you. Yes, there are a number of salary sacrifice schemes which provide employees with access to electric vehicles. The possibility of implementing such a scheme will be picked up as part of the work to review the entire employee benefits offer. I think that's yes. We'll now move to a vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. That's carried. Thank you. We now move on to item 12, which is the Gender, Ethnicity and Disability Pay Gap Report for 2024. I will move the report. It is a statutory requirement to calculate and report the gender pay gap each year by the 30th of March. The decision was made by the Council also to report ethnicity and disability pay gaps from March 2024 dataset. This is not a statutory requirement, but a positive step by the Council to be transparent about pay and to acknowledge and act on pay differences based on these protected characteristics. Information based on data as at the 31st of March 2024 and collated in line with statutory requirements. The mean and median pay gap and bonus pay gap are measured. Norwich City Council don't have any pay elements that meet the bonus pay gap criteria. The same principles and methodologies have been applied to measure the ethnicity and disability pay gap. Ethnicity and disability are self-reported by employees, and it should be noted that some employees have chosen not to share this information. The findings in the report reflect those employees who have shared information. On the gender pay gap, these are the key findings. Mean measurement 2.17% is the lowest point since statutory reporting commenced, and it reduced from last year at 5% and is broadly in line with 2022 data. The median, a slight pay gap of 0.3% from previous 0%. We've analysed the gender pay gap by grade, which shows for almost 50% of the workforce there is no gender pay gap. Across some grades, women are paid more than men. It is in the lower grades where the gender pay gap is most significant. In terms of ethnicity, calculations based on those who've shared their ethnic heritage, we don't have this for 23% of our workforce, however. Pay gap data the mean is 10.17% and the median is 4.55% for an ethnicity. In terms of disability, 30% of the workforce have not shared information. So again, this is based on numbers who've shared the information. The mean gap is 5.18% and the median is 1.14%. In terms of gender and ethnicity, we have identified both ethnicity diverse men and women are paid less than white men and women. Further identified that ethnicity diverse women are paid more than ethnicity diverse men. In terms of gender and disability, when looking at gender and disability, this shows a minimal pay gap. There will be further work and more detailed actions to further understand pay gap and interventions we can put in place. So I hope that summarises it. A lot of data in there, which I hope people are able to follow. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Kidman. Does any cabinet member wish to speak on the item? No. Okay, so we'll move to questions from political group leaders that have been sent in advance. Councillor Galvin.
Thank you, and it's really good to see ethnicity and disability pay gaps reported for the first time. But as you mentioned, 23% of staff didn't declare their ethnicity. It's a quarter odd and a third. 30% didn't declare the disability status. They're chunky numbers, and it must be questioned how the data was collected and what effort has gone into finding out why people are so reluctant to disclose their ethnicity and disability status.
I will respond. Equality monitoring data is collected on a voluntary basis, and it is down to individual choice as to whether an employee shares information about their protected characteristics. The issue of underreporting is being looked into through management conversations and liaison with the unions. We are also looking to launch a Share Not Declare campaign to encourage colleagues to complete this data and to improve understanding about why it is important for us to collect the data and how it will be used.
Thank you. Could I just ask a thing that might be helpful as well? I've just noticed that other councils published like trackers on this on their websites that are quite useful. It's quite a visible way of supporting that as in our role as kind of a leader.
I'll take that away. Look at it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we'll now move to the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous, that's carried. Item 13 is the capital programme updates for 2024 to 2026 and associated contract delegations, and I will move the report. This report supports the important progression of the Anglia Square scheme and a small number of other important projects funded by Section 106 resources. When we purchased Anglia Square, we were already in discussions with Homes England to secure the extra funding necessary to support the viability of the scheme. The receipt of a revised grant funding agreement to the value of £34 million, which is what our due diligence suggested was essential, is an endorsement of their confidence in our ability to get on with the scheme, and it's to be welcomed. Following the agreement of this council to progress with an investment partnership, we have continued to develop the detailed contractual arrangements to make that happen. We are confident that we will be announcing the creation of that partnership very shortly, and the delegation to the Deputy Chief Executive in consultation with myself is to minimise the risk that the grant for Anglia Square will be unspent, given that it must be fully used before March 2026. I note that there is a written question on that subject, and officers are confident that with this delegation, achieving that is very possible. I'm also really pleased to propose that the 3 schemes funded by Section 106 resources, playground gates, relocation of the homage sculptures and works to the slipway at Anderson's Meadow, are now able to proceed with funding in place. Is that homage or homage? I don't know. It is homage. I got that right, like fromage. Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Carly, thank you, Councillor Harper. So, do any cabinet colleagues wish to speak on this item? No. Okay, we'll move then to leaders from political group leaders' questions that have been sent in advance. So, Councillor Galvin, would you please ask your question?
Thank you. You've alluded to it, but in terms of the fund, the Homes Infrastructure Fund mean that the purchase, demolition, remediation, preparation of Anglia Square need to be done, and £34 million spent in a year by March 26. How confident are you that the full amount will be spent by then?
I'll defer that to John East, I think.
I can respond. Officers continue to work at pace to ensure that the grant funding will be spent by the deadline, and we remain confident that this will happen. And of course, we are working very closely with Homes England, and we provide monthly monitoring back to them to ensure that the programme is kept on track.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, John.
Could I just ask another thing about
quickly?
Yeah, thank you. What's being done to share the opportunities of the meanwhile spaces that are planned there with other businesses, and will there be enough room for all businesses that want the space on affordable terms?
Okay, do you want to do a written answer to that?
Part of the remediation.
Want to do a written answer to that?
Right. Happy to do a written answer, but I think just to say that we are confident that all the businesses which do want to remain within the site of Anglia Square can be accommodated within the post meanwhile use, temporary use.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will now move to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. That's carried. So now move on to Treasury Management 2024-25 Q3 review, and I will move the report. This report provides details of the Treasury Management activity for the first 9 months of the 2024-25 financial year to the 31st of December 2024, and highlights compliance with the Council's Treasury Management strategy and policies which have previously been approved by the Council. The Q3 report was considered by the Treasury Management Committee on the 7th of January, who noted and endorsed the report for consideration and approval at Cabinet. The report recommendations ask Cabinet to note the Treasury management activity undertaken in the financial year to 31st December 2024 and recommend the report for approval by Council. The Council has adopted the CIPFA Code of Practice for Treasury Management in the public sector and the Prudential Code for Capital Finance and Local Authorities and operates its Treasury management activity in compliance with these codes. The codes place responsibility on members to review and scrutinise Treasury management policy and activity against prudential indicators. This report sets out a range of indicators and highlights that there are no breaches to alert you to. The Council remains significantly internally borrowed, and cash balances available for investment will continue to enable the Council to maximise its returns in the current interest rate environment. The Council's Treasury management activity continues to be monitored against the wider economic backdrop in accordance with the Link Asset Services and the Council's Treasury management strategy. I'm pleased that this report illustrates the positive management of our cash balances and debt portfolio and would endorse the recommendations set out in the report. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hampton, thank you. Does any Cabinet member wish to speak on this item? No. Okay, so I'll move to questions from political group leaders. Councillor Galvin, would you please ask a question?
Thanks. Noted that investments have increased by 15 million on the table between March and December, mostly last December, mostly into money market funds. Was wondering how it's impossible to increase that by so much.
I will respond. The cash available for investment can fluctuate on a daily basis. Cash sums available to invest are made up of cash-backed reserves, that's funds set aside to be spent at a future date, and variable day-to-day surplus cash due to a timing difference between the receipt of cash and the future payment out. The Treasury team undertake cash flow modelling to identify cash peaks and troughs so that the Council can maintain a working capital cash balance with the remainder invested to earn a return for the Council taxpayer. Typically, the cash flow model shows the Council can see a run on cash towards the end of the financial year as sums received earlier in the financial year are spent. However, this isn't always the case as cash flow can vary in accordance with the needs of the business. The Treasury team use money market funds as they represent low risk investment options at a competitive rate of return and of same day liquidity options. Okay, thank you. We'll now move to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. That's carried. Thank you. Now we'll move to item 15, which is the write-off of irrecoverable debt over £50,000, and I will move the report. The report requests approval for one write-off. The company in question entered a company voluntary agreement, that's CVA. Arrangement, should I say, CVA. A CVA allows the company to pay creditors over a fixed period. If creditors agree, the company can continue to trade, that is. The restructuring plan in this case allowed for payments until March 2024. The restructuring plan was sanctioned by the High Court of Justice on the 24th of August 2023 with no further payments beyond March 2024. In line with a company voluntary arrangement, the remaining debt cannot be recovered and needs to be written off. The recommendation requests approval to write off £62,530 of non-recoverable national non-domestic rates debt, which is 100% covered within the NNDR bad debt provision. I remember doing these when I had the finance brief 10 years ago. So not much has changed. Do I have a seconder, please? Claire, Councillor Kidman. Does any Cabinet member wish to speak? No. Okay, so I'll move to questions from political party leaders. Councillor Galvin, would you care to ask your question, please?
Thanks. What was the total cost, including the legal fees? The total cost to the Council, including legal fees?
Thank you, Councillor Galvin. I will respond. Under the Rates Retention Scheme, national non-domestic rates collected are shared between the Council. That's 40% for us, and county 10%, and central government 50%. Every year the Council has to estimate a collectible NNDR figure, including an adjustment for bad debts. Should that estimate be exceeded, there are opportunities to adjust this on later returns. There were no other legal costs incurred. We'll now move to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's passed, carried unanimously. So item 16 is managing assets non-housing, and I will move the report. The proactive management of our non-housing property portfolio is crucial to delivering the best outcomes for the city and ensuring we are achieving best value from our assets. In 2022, the Council adopted its Strategic Asset Management Framework, or SAMF, and in March last year, the action plan was updated. We have made significant strides in implementing the framework, and since adoption, we have insourced the property service, restructured the team, established robust governance processes, and commenced the implementation of a new asset management system. These efforts have enabled us to dispose of assets totaling over £50 million, generating £28.5 million in capital receipts, while maintaining gross income levels of £6 to £6.5 million per annum. Looking ahead, we aim to address the imbalance in our property investment portfolio by disposing of weaker assets that deliver low income, have high management costs, and carry substantial capital liabilities. This will enhance the overall performance of our portfolio, ensuring sustainable revenue and capital growth in the long term. The report before you today seeks delegated authority for the disposal of a further list of assets to help generate capital receipts, reduce liabilities, and streamline the portfolio. By continuing to implement the framework, we are positioning our portfolio to generate longer-term sustainable revenue and capital growth, ultimately supporting our corporate priorities and the well-being of the community. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hampton, thank you. And does any cabinet member wish to speak on this item? No. Okay, so I'll move to questions from political group leaders that have been sent in advance. Councillor Galvin, would you care to ask your question, please?
Thank you. The asset management strategy recognises we're not always the most effective custodians and that we need to focus on a core portfolio. However, how do we make sure that we're balancing the reduction of management costs and capital repair liabilities for low performing assets with our responsibilities for protecting and enhancing listed historical buildings and enhancing energy efficiency across the city?
Thank you for your question. I will respond. As you highlight, the asset management strategy recognises that our partners may be better placed to manage these assets and access funds to ensure they are maintained and conserved for future generations. Examples include our work with the Norwich Preservation Trust and recent invitations for expressions of interest in partnership working on the future of the Music House and the Old Library. While some assets, such as the City Wall, may always require public sector stewardship, there is little reason to hold heritage assets that do not deliver wider benefits in meeting the Council's corporate objectives, or where such benefits could still be delivered via the private sector. For assets retained in the portfolio, the Council will consider a package of capital investment, including energy efficiency improvements, as part of asset reviews and subject to business cases. I will now move that we exclude the press and public from the meeting during the consideration of items on the grounds that it involves a likely disclosure of exempt information as specified in Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, or it being confidential for the purposes of Section 100A brackets 2 of that Act. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hampton, thank you.
Did want to ask just for a bit of clarification of why item the 24 was below the line, but maybe you can give that to me. Yeah, that was my question, wasn't it? So just
I think we will, Emily, that's Emily to answer that.
Is it been below the line?
It is been below the line. Yeah, have we switched off yet? Oh, yeah, sorry. Do I have a seconder, please? Yeah, and all those in favour? Thank you. Welcome back. OK, are we back on air? Good, thank you. Right, we'll now move to a vote. All those in favour, please indicate. Thank you. That's passed unanimously. Item 17 is the award of a contract for Telford Unit E, and I will remove the report. I'm pleased to present the report which seeks delegated authority to award a contract for works at one of our investment assets in Telford. Telford was acquired for, not the whole of it, but the asset, for £14.7 million in 2020 and has brought in investment income of over £5 million. This project aims to maximise the potential of our investment assets and ensure a sustainable revenue stream to support our city services. The report seeks delegated authority to award a contract for works to enable subdivision and reletting of one of our 3 industrial units. The funds have been built into the recently approved capital programme. The refurbishment and subdivision of Unit E are crucial for several reasons. Firstly, it will enhance the marketability of the property by transforming it into smaller, more attractive units. This strategic move is expected to lower investment risks and increase rental returns, contributing to the council's financial stability. Our analysis indicates that Telford remains a prime location for industrial properties with strong prospects for rental and capital growth. By investing in this refurbishment, we are positioning ourselves to benefit from these market conditions and secure long-term income for the council. In conclusion, this report recommends proceeding with the refurbishment and subdivision of Unit E and delegating the contract award to the Executive Director of Resources. This approach will enable us to act swiftly, minimise holding costs and maximise the returns to the council. So first of all, do I have a seconder, please? Okay, Councillor Hampton, thank you. Does any Cabinet member wish to speak on the above item? No, I've just add that these are fantastic returns on the investment. It's clearly been very effective. So I'll move to questions from political group leaders that have been sent in advance. Councillor Galvin, would you please ask your question?
Thanks. The property consultancy JLL raised concerns in 2022 that we had too many large investments, effectively placing too many eggs in one basket, and the risk of failing to effectively manage our commercial property portfolio was added to the risk register in June 2023, rightly, and was recognised as a risk to the long-term funding of this council. Now we hear we've had to write off £1 million in dilapidations owed at one of the larger investments in Telford after a tenant went into administration, and we've now budgeted to spend £2 million on refurbishment of the unit. Since 2020, the unit, together with 2 others, has earned, we're told in the report, £5 million. So as a proportion of income, those costs look to me relatively high. What are the lessons we're learning about that?
I will answer, thank you. Over the past 5 years, Telford Unit E has generated the council's highest income from a single tenant. This property has delivered a significant return on investment, which would have been challenging to achieve elsewhere. In addition to the rental income, it is expected that after the planned renovations, the properties will be valued at approximately £5 million more than their original purchase price. Owning commercial investment properties inherently involves risk, which is why we proactively manage and document these risks in our risk register. We continuously monitor asset performance and maintain a commercial property reserve to mitigate these risks. The tenant's departure offers a unique opportunity to renovate and subdivide the unit, therefore reducing the risk for associated with holding this asset. This also opens up the potential for substantial additional revenue and capital investment growth, benefiting the council's mid-term financial projections. Now, I just need to ask, do any Cabinet members wish to speak on the below the line item? Okay, does anybody else, are there any questions below the line? There aren't. Okay, in that case, we do not need to move to exclude press and public. So, do I have a seconder, please? Okay, Councillor Harper. We will now move to a vote. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Okay, so we now have award of contract. At long last, item 18 has arrived. Award of contract, new fleet of mechanical sweepers and new horticultural machinery for NCSL. Could I ask Councillor Hampton, please, to move the report?
Thank you. This paper is to award a contract for the procurement of 9 new mechanical sweepers, 7 electric stand-on mowers and 3 ride-on mowers for NCSL, investment which should help improve the cleanliness and appearance of the natural and built environment within the city. On street sweepers, the previous vehicles reached the end of their scheduled operational life and lease in September 2023, and in the months prior to this, they were issues with them being prone to break down, needing extra repairs, etc. So the company opted to end the lease, and interim measures were put in place while a longer-term solution was developed. So replacement of these is a priority for the council and the company, and not doing so would be a barrier to improving street cleaning performance. The report details some of the options that were considered, including some detail on why, unfortunately, going for an electric fleet is not feasible, with market research having shown that for this size and type of vehicle required, the tech hasn't caught up yet, essentially, and it wouldn't be possible to achieve an affordable, reliable service by going down this route. Likewise, the option of double shifting vehicles, so each vehicle operates for longer each day, meaning less vehicles would be required overall, was explored but ruled out because of increased stress on these quite complex machines, which would result in increased maintenance costs and reduced lifetime, so not balanced financially overall. But ultimately, Karcher, however you pronounce that one, were identified as a preferred supplier, and extensive engagement has taken place with them in the meantime to ensure that lead-in times for delivery are minimised once agreement is reached on procurement arrangements. There was also a funding options appraisal carried out jointly by the council and the company, looking at three options, which were leasing the vehicles, a loan from the council to the company at commercial rates to allow the company to purchase the vehicles, and finally, the council outrightly purchasing the vehicles using borrowing and amendment of the asset fee paid by the company to the council to reflect the cost of the council. And it was that latter option that was preferred financially, and would also give us more security over the ownership of the vehicles. And the cost of purchasing the new fleet is detailed under point 13 of the report. And then on grass cutting, NCSL uses a range of machinery, which again is highly specialist and complex. The current equipment is either at the end of its useful life or has become costly to repair and keep replacing its parts. So purchasing new equipment should increase efficiency, reduce maintenance costs, and enhance safety too. In this instance, it was feasible for 7 new machines and the stand-on mowers to be electric, which is really positive. These will have reduced emissions, reduced operating costs and reduced noise, as well as increased productivity and manoeuvrability. And again, a funding options appraisal was carried out jointly by the council and the company, and outright purchase by the council is preferred for the same reasons as before. And the cost of purchasing these is under point 13. So the recommendations on this paper are that we agree to award the contract for 9 new mechanical sweepers to Karcher, to award the contract for 10 new grass cutting machines to Ernest Doe, and to utilise 1.105 million of 1.117 million allocated at the council's capital programme for 24-25 for the purchase of this new equipment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hampton. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Kidman, thank you. Do any cabinet members wish to speak? No. Okay, so I'll move to questions from political group leaders that have been sent in advance. Councillor Galvin, would you please ask your question?
Thank you. The report tells us that there's the over £1 million sweeping and mowing fleet that we're proposing to purchase and then lease to NCSL as a replacement for original vehicles that we provided the company. So we're recommended to buy this equipment and recharge it back over the life of the assets, providing a revenue income for the council of 0.28 million, as I understand it. You can correct me if that's wrong. The council will therefore own the assets. Is that the way it was planned the company would operate, or was it envisaged that it would purchase and own its own equipment?
Thank you. The fleet sweepers that is being replaced was provided for a lease that was originally entered into by Norwich Norse Environmental, the joint venture with Norse that preceded NCSL. And as mentioned in the report, these vehicles reached the end of their lease back in September 2023. A cost benefit analysis was carried out at the time that demonstrated the most cost effective way to replace the fleet was by purchase rather than leasing. A number of funding options were explored for replacing the sweepers and the grass cutting machinery. Purchased by the council was identified as delivering the lowest cost and lowest risk to us and the company, and being wholly owned by the council. As stated in the report, paragraph 28.1 of the contract states the company shall at all times during the contract period provide all equipment, and at its own expense necessary for the proper performance of the service. The council and the company need to be flexible in their approach to the funding and procurement and procuring equipment necessary to deliver the contract. We continuously review the contract to ensure that it delivers best value, which is why the report recommends amending the contract to allow the council to purchase equipment where appropriate.
Thank you, Councillor Hampton. We'll now move to votes. All those in favour? That's passed unanimously.
Yeah, Carly's just said, do we get to name them?
I don't know, Sweepy McSweepface.
Yeah.
I think a little bit more detail than that, to be honest.
Okay.
Sure, we'll go with your
Yeah.
Okay, I need to say that has been carried unanimously. So item 19 is the HRA housing revenue account contracts for upgrades and compliance works. Could I ask Councillor Hampton please to move the report?
Yeah, thank you. And I'll be fairly brief on this, especially because I'm covering this on behalf of Councillor Jones, who can't be here today. But it's a report outlining the detail of 3 HRA maintenance contracts, 2 awards, new contracts, and 1 is an existing contract extension. The total award is for just over 3 million, with this funding already approved as part of our budget setting process last month. The first 2 of these contracts for solar PV and renewable heating, air source heat pumps, will make a real difference to residents by reducing bills and increasing warmth, and of course will reduce carbon emissions, hence why it's come to me to cover today. And then the contract extension for maintenance and electrical repairs will help ensure we can be responsive to maintenance in communal areas. The recommendations relating to these awards and the extension are summarised on page 203 of the agenda pack, and there is a below the line element of this report, which is an additional supplementary agenda, which I don't personally need to say anything further on, but if we do need to discuss below the line, that's on the agenda in due course. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hampton. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Harper, thank you. Does any cabinet member wish to speak on the exempt item? No. Okay. In that case, I'll move to questions from political group leaders that have been sent in advance. Councillor Galvin, would you please ask your question?
Thanks. PV spending looks very positive compared to previous years where we budgeted high but spent low. What's been holding us back in the past?
Yeah, thank you. Previous energy efficiency spending has concentrated on loft, cavity and external wall insulation for solid wall properties and thermodynamic hot water systems. The first PV systems on our stock were installed by third party in 2012, 2013 and again in 2015, 2016. We don't own these systems, but tenants benefit from free electricity. We started to install our PV systems utilising our own budgets in 2021, and we've installed around 150 systems since then. Solar PV technologically has developed over the last decade to deliver better efficiency and therefore more free electricity for the end user. We are now planning around 150 domestic PV systems in 25-26 and considering where larger communal PV systems can be implemented, with both enabling the transition to renewable heating in future years. And this aligns with the Council's 2045 decarbonisation target while also improving stock performance towards a minimum EPC rating of C.
Thank you.
What do you think has been holding us back?
I think we have just answered that. If you want to kind of go into some more specific detail, well, I think we did. We've explained the technological advances where our efforts were focused previously. As I say, if there's anything more specific you want to come back with, and after the meeting, happy to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Let's move to a vote then. All those in favour? That's unanimously carried. Thank you. So now we move to exclude the public. I'm afraid, for a second time. I will move that we exclude the present public from the meeting during the consideration of items on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as specified in Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, or it being confidential for the purposes of Section 100A(2) of the Act. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. All those in favour? That's passed unanimously.